Hi guys, I'm currently going to do the author tag while I've got chance, which I was tagged by RM Waters, who is awesome. I am going to do this right now, so without further ado, let's begin. So the first question is, what inspired you to write your first book? My main inspiration was from my home life. There was no direct inspiration in the actual storyline, but I was always inspired to write when I had issues with home life. You know, when I was feeling particularly down, or when I had issues, or when things were going wrong, I would write. And I would write because reading wasn't enough of an escape for me. So that's what inspired me to write my first book. I've actually written quite a lot of different books, stories. Most of them can be found on Wattpad now, but I'm rewriting the sequel to Amnesia right now, and Amnesia is my first published book. So, next question, do you have a specific writing style? I don't think I do. I'm constantly improving my writing style, so I don't think I do. I think my writing style is a bit lacking in the detail description department, but I'm hoping to get that further up and running in future, especially in the sequel. I'm hoping the sequel will be a lot longer than Amnesia itself, which will be a really easy read. As RM Waters pointed out. Next one, how did you come up with this title? That is really simple. The title was based on the storyline. In fact, it was based on the very first few pages of the story. It was really easy to come up with. I never had a problem with coming up with the title. It just came to me straight away. It's simple, it's snappy, it does the job. The next question is there a message in your novel that you want readers to grasp? Kind of. There are kind of a few messages. The first is that you can always rely on the people closest to you. As you probably found out if you've read about halfway through, no spoilers. The second is that things don't always go as planned. That's from the end, I'm not going to spoil anything. And the third is that there are people out there you can't trust. But there are a lot of people, but for every one of those, there's at least 3 or 4 that you can. And that's kind of a big message. It's one that I've came to realise quite slowly, that there are people I can't trust, and it becomes an issue when the people you can't trust are the people who are really close to you, and that's kind of a big problem. Again, that's kind of a spoiler-ish. You'll find out when you read it. Second, how much of the book is realistic is the next question. Well, I imagine it's all realistic. All of it could possibly happen. It's not a fantasy, it is a fiction, but it's a realistic fiction. For all I know, that could have already happened to someone somewhere out there in the world. It probably has, but I haven't known about it. But yeah, that is a realistic book. It's not real, it's completely fictional, but it's realistic. Are experiences based on someone you know or events in your own life? Not really. Obviously, the main sequence of events is not based on anyone I know at all. I have never known anyone with amnesia. I've never known anyone who's fell down the stairs. Again, spoiler if you haven't read any of it yet. However, I think parts of the... I don't know. I don't think any of it is, actually. So the answer to that would be no. What books have most influenced your life most? Definitely Harry Potter. That's what got me into kind of definitely properly reading. But when I was little, I used to read Catherine Cookson novels because I used to stay with my grandmother, and she never had any kids' books. So that's what got me into actually reading novels. I was like 4 at the time. After that, it's kind of the likes of J.K. Rowling and The Hunger Games as well, by Suzanne Collins. And yeah, a lot of that is kind of my influence. And also the guys on Wattpad, all the amateur authors on Wattpad. Next, if you had to choose which writer would you consider a mentor? If I had to consider them a mentor now as it is, probably J.K. Rowling, because she's really, she's not just like a famous person, she's also a really nice person. Like, she donates to charity, she's got like an awesome personality. However, if we're talking about any people at all, I think I'd go with R.M. Waters. She's been, although I haven't actually spoken to her in person or actually even spoken to her voice to voice, on YouTube she's been pretty big in kind of the, helping me out in terms of publishing and stuff. So that's great. So yeah, what book are you reading now? Currently, I'm not reading a book. I finished Dancing in Darkness by R.M. Waters a couple of days ago. I tried to get back into a book I was in the middle of reading before I started then, but I stopped reading it months ago and I couldn't get back into it. I might start it again, might not. If I don't, I'm probably going to start Perfect People by Peter James, which is amazing. Like, I've read it before, but it's so great that I could read it again. It's kind of freaky, but it's pretty good. God. Next question. Are there any new authors that have grasped your interest? R.M. Waters, straight away. She's definitely got my interest now. I can't wait for the sequel, even though I know it's going to be a while. Who else? I don't really follow authors so much. I just I find books that I like, the kind of, the little blurb on the back. If I like that, I'll read it. Haven't really discovered authors as authors, because some authors can do some really amazing books and they can do some really crappy ones straight afterwards. What are your current projects? The sequel to Amnesia is my biggest one at the moment. I'm also writing a fantasy book, which I hope to finish off after Christmas, because I want to get the sequel to Amnesia done by Christmas and then do the editing next year while I'm writing the fantasy one, or possibly before I write the fantasy. I don't know, it all depends. But the fantasy one's going to be a lot bigger, a lot more kind of action-packed and interesting. It's already pretty interesting, because I finished like a chapter and a half. Name one entity that you feel supported you outside of family members even. Outside of family members. Friends, big influence. Again, R.M. Waters, other authors, J.K. Rowling, she inspired me to write, as well as to read. R.M. Waters inspired me to publish. And yeah, it's kind of, J.K. Rowling didn't support me, but at the same time, her books did in life. So, do you see writing as a career? I'd like it to be. I really would like it to be a sustainable career. However, I'm not sure it's going to get that far. At the moment, it's something I'm doing in my spare time. I'm looking for a job, I'm studying, I'm in the middle of writing the sequel, yeah. But at the same time, I'd like it to be something I can do full-time, and not have to worry about anything else, just kind of focus on my writing and get it done and have books and have people buy them. So if you want to help me reach that goal, go buy my book right now. Not right now, wait till the video's finished. If you had to do it all over again, would you change anything in your latest book? I would make it more detailed, more descriptive, and basically make things a lot better. As I said, I had an issue with the description and stuff because I'm really no good at it. I would make it much more descriptive. I would make the characters feel like actual characters and not just people talking. Yeah, more of an actual book than a script. Next question. Do you recall how your interest in writing originated? I think Harry Potter was my main thing. I remember when I was young, about 11 or so, I actually started writing something, and it was essentially just the biggest rip-off of Harry Potter you've ever seen. Didn't finish it. I literally, because I didn't have any lined paper, I took plain paper and drew lines on it to write on. The lines were diagonal, the writing was... It was a nightmare, but that's where I started, and I just went from there, and it's been pretty cool ever since. Can you share a little of your current work with us? Can I? Well, it depends. If you have read Amnesia, then you will kind of know where the next book is going to take off. It takes off in a different place, slightly further in the future than Amnesia. Amnesia hasn't got a setting as such, but the next project, the sequel, has, and it's not in the same place as Amnesia. It's a different place. I will say that the two main characters at the end of Amnesia do occur in the sequel. I'm not sure if someone else will be making an appearance yet. Quite possibly they will, if you know who I'm talking about. Things are going to change a bit, I will point that out. It's not going to be as dramatic as Amnesia, I don't think. It's going to be much more teen, romancy thing, I think. Is there anything you find particularly challenging in your writing? Yes. Description. Description. It's always a challenge for me to actually to write and not turn it into a script. Like, literally, part of me thinks I should just be a script writer and just write scripts, because the description of my characters is always so bleh. Like, oh yes, they have brown hair. And they said this. And this person said this. And this person said this. And it's, it's too much talking, not enough description. Who is your favourite author, and what is it that really strikes you about their work? This is the last one I have on my list. My favourite author is probably Suzanne Collins. I would say J.K. Rowling, but her writing style is quite odd. And interestingly about J.K. Rowling, depending on how you look at her work, you can have different takeaways from it. With Suzanne Collins, I felt much more emotionally attached to the characters. The Hunger Games was a particularly emotional read for me. Well, all three of them were. Particularly Catching Fire. That was the only book I've ever almost cried at. Never actually cried, but I actually had an emotional response, which was very different for me. I'm watching the movies currently. I was disappointed with the first, I was much happy with the second, and the third I'm waiting, third and fourth now, because I split into two, I'm waiting for with kind of an eager thing. Oh no, that's not the last on my thing. I have more. I'm halfway through. Next question. Do you travel much concerning your books? No. Oh, I don't have a passport, but I would love to go to America to kind of research a little bit about kind of the area and stuff, because a lot of my books take place in America. A lot of my stories do, because movies and things happen in America, so you kind of have that cliche American feel to things, and it's much easier to kind of say, oh yes, this happened in America, than this happened in England, and I don't know things about England either. I know more about America because of movies and books and stuff. Who designed the covers? I did. I found some royalty-free images on... I found a royalty-free image online, used the ebook creator thing on CreateSpace, the cover creator thing, and made it myself. What was the hardest part of writing your book? Again, description. It's always description. That's always the hardest part of writing any book. Filling it out, padding it up, which obviously I didn't manage to do very well, because it's 52 pages, I believe. Did you learn anything from writing your book, and what was it? I learned that I can be subconsciously clever. Because I wrote that book, I basically free-wrote that book. I did not plan ahead when writing it, I just wrote it as I thought it, and it all came together. And when reading it through, during editing, I honestly found myself being like, wow, that kind of links really great with the ending. And I was really shocked at how great I kind of work things out. If you read it again, if you read it more than once, things become clearer about the full storyline, like things that you don't think of at the end, because if you've read it, you'll know what the end is. But if you read it again, you can notice bits that actually link to it quite well. And that was all subconscious, that never happened properly. The end was a surprise to even me. My characters had a mind of their own. Do you have any advice for other writers? Persevere. That's my only advice. Just keep going, because I nearly didn't. I nearly gave up, and look where I am now, because I didn't. I didn't give up. I kept going, and if you keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, your writing will get better. Your your experience will show, and you'll be able to do it much easier, much quicker. Plus, also do sequels. Sequels are great, because then you already know all the characters. It's really great. Next question. Do you have anything specific that you want to say to your readers? First of all, thank you. That's my biggest one. Thank you, and please tell your friends about my book. It would be great if I could kind of establish myself in the world. It might take time, but with any luck. What were challenges, research, literary, physiological, psychological, I read that one, and logistical in bringing it to life? Challenges. again, writing the description was the biggest challenge in all of it. I mean, everything else just kind of flowed together. One of the challenges I'm facing now, however, is that I have no life issues, or no big ones anyway, which means I'm less inspired now than I was a couple of years ago when I originally wrote Amnesia. I mean, when I originally wrote Amnesia, it was in first person. I edited it into third, which took some time. It was a bit of a drag, but other than that, it was just the fact. It's just the fact now that I'm less inspired and description is a nightmare. What books/authors have influenced your writing? Influenced my writing? I think a bits of J.K. Rowling and Suzanne Collins and things like that. Darren Shan possibly a little bit. I know I'm not the horror genre, but I kind of pick things up from writing styles from books I've read. A lot of authors on Wattpad as well. After reading their books, I've been quite inspired and things, so yeah. What genre do you consider your book? Realistic teen fiction would be my answer to that. Do you ever experience writer's block? Yes. All the time. Yeah, it's when the thing is when you're not particularly inspired and you don't really want to write, it becomes an issue, and then you get that's what becomes writer's block. You feel a bit crap and you don't know what to write, and you feel like all your writing is utter crap. And I get that all the time. More than I'd like to admit. Next question. Do you write an outline before every book you write? No, never wrote an outline to Amnesia, still managed to publish it. Never wrote an outline to anything I have on Wattpad. Everything just comes freeform with me. I am writing an outline for the fantasy book and for the sequel to Amnesia, which I'm calling Forbidden Memories. Spoiler. Because I seem to be able to make things longer when I have an outline, and it becomes much easier. Have you ever hated something you wrote? Yes. Pardon me. The rip-off to Harry Potter is definitely something I hated. Not to begin with, but afterwards I was like, wow. But yeah, a lot of things I write and I think they're utter complete bollocks. And you know, some people like it, some people really do like it, and other people think it's a bit crap, and you know, I have mixed things with everything I write. Some things I hate myself. One time I killed off a character and I hated it. I never, you know, I absolutely hated killing off that character. It was the most awful thing I ever done because he was one of the most liked characters in the book as well. And yeah, I won't be doing that this time. He was one of the Amnesia people. Because I wrote 2 sequels originally, and I killed him in the third, but I'm not planning to do that this time. It might still happen, it might not, I doubt it. I'm rewriting the entire couple of sequels, so even if you look on Wattpad and see them, you won't know what's happening in the books. What is your favourite theme/genre to write about? My favourite to write about is fantasy kind of stuff. However, the one I write most of, because I find it's much easier to deal with, is realistic fiction. Because with realistic fiction, you have boundaries and you know what you can write and what you can't. Whereas with fantasy and things like that, the limits are endless, and you become spoilt for choice, and you don't know what to write next because you've gone so far, and you're like, well, what do I do now? And it can become quite awkward. Right, now I'm at the end. I've got 2 more questions. While you were writing, did you ever feel as if you were one of the characters? Yes, but not in Amnesia as it is now. When I wrote in first person, yeah, definitely. I was properly in the mind of Max. Not that his name was Max then. I was definitely properly in the mind of the character, and because a lot of my writing is actually in first person, and I was definitely in the mind of each character as I wrote them. And that's why they have a mind of their own. It's not me thinking these things. I know that sounds really creepy, like I've got some sort of schizophrenia or something, but honestly, when you start writing, especially in the first person, you don't actually realise that you're not actually making these thoughts in your head. Well, you are, but not as you. And it's quite, you know, if you're a writer, you'll probably understand me, that the characters take on their own lives, and, you know, your fingers just work away, and you don't realise that, you know, afterwards you're like, did I really write that? And it's quite funny. And the last question, what are your expectations for the book? Well, I've already sold like 6 copies, I think, and I'm not expecting to sell any more at the moment. I know a few people have said they'll buy it, but whether I don't expect them to, but I would like them to. You know, I don't have high expectations. I would like it to achieve really high, you know, best-selling short story of the century. But I don't expect anything like that. I dream. I'm allowed to dream. Yeah, so that's the author tag. I will be uploading this sometime this week. I don't know when. It's currently Monday. So I'll be uploading this at some point soon. I shall hope to see you then.